A very warm welcome to your favorite current affairs breakfast show. This is Africa Good Morning. We welcome you from wherever you are in SADC, Africa and the world. My name is Aina Raizakweyo alongside Glenora Shupura.
Good morning, Aina.
Good morning.
Now, today is Lost Socks Memorial Day. We don't know where they go, but we do know they are always disappearing. Is there some kind of vortex created within the whirl of hot air and tumbling wet clothes that exist within the dryer? Or perhaps within the washer, there is some form of strange kraken-like creature that exists that eats them, and only one is left. I don't know about you, Aina, but I always struggle with keeping a pair of socks. So I have like a lot of different colored socks, and I don't know when they're they don't match at all. Let's take a look at this video on Lost Socks Memorial Day.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Let's get into the news making headlines across Africa. 60 believed killed after school attack by Russia in East Ukraine. At least 60 people are missing and feared dead in debris of a burned-out school after a Russian air raid in eastern Ukraine. The governor of the Luhan region, Saeed Hadi, said on Sunday that 2 people were confirmed dead after Russian forces dropped a bomb on a school and 30 civilians had been pulled from the debris. About 90 people had been sheltering in the school in the village in Biholrika, said he died, and a fire following Saturday's attack engulfed the building. Video released by the Luhansk military administration showed emergency service personnel amid the burning ruins of the building. An unidentified person can be heard saying it is unlikely others have survived. The craters is down in the basement. It's horrible. Ukraine and the West have accused Russian forces for targeting civilians and war crimes charges Moscow rejects.
In our next story, we are still in Ukraine. Zelensky says evil has returned. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said evil has returned to his country as Kyiv commemorates Victory Day, marking the day Nazi Germany surrendered to the Allies during World War II. The Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated leaders of ex-Soviet republics and the Kremlin-backed separatists operating in the eastern Ukrainian region known as the Donbas on the 77th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Putin ignored Western allies of the Soviet Union that defeated Nazi Germany from the West, such as the United States, as well as governments considered hostile to Moscow, such as Ukraine and Georgia. A message published on the Kremlin website Sunday said, "Today it is a communal duty to prevent the rebirth of Nazism, which brought so much suffering to the people of various countries." Russia claims its February 24 invasion of Ukraine is a denazification effort. In response, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has compared Russia's war to the invasion of the Soviet Union by the Wehrmacht in 1941. Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed that as in 1945, victory will be ours, ahead of Moscow's commemoration of Victory Day. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said during a Victory Day address on Sunday that evil has returned to Ukraine. The evil has returned again, Zelensky said, in a different form under different slogans, but for the same purpose.
All right, we move over to Nigeria, where bandits kill over 50 in fresh Zamfara attack. Residents of Bakura local government of Zamfara state said no fewer than 56 people were killed on Friday afternoon when bandits attacked 3 villages in the area. A former councillor who asked not to be named told our reporters that the gunmen attacked the Sabon Garin Damri of the villages around 2:30 p.m. He said the bandits carried out what appears to be coordinated attacks from Sabon Gari, Damri and Kalahe before a joint security team confronted them. Another resident, Mazua Damri, said the number of casualties would have been more if the security agents didn't confront the bandits. Master Damri also said the bandits were pursued by the team of soldiers and police personnel, forcing them to abandon the livestock, food items and other things they had looted from residents.
Zimbabweans vow to defy police crackdown ahead of planned uprising. Zimbabweans have vowed to defy threats by police to violently quell the planned Monday uprising, which is trending the social media under #ShutDownZimbabwe campaign. The protests are aimed at pressurizing authorities to find solutions for the country's economic meltdown. As reported earlier by the newzimbabwe.com, security forces have been placed on high alert to thwart any such process. Government spokesperson Nick Mangwana has also been active on his Twitter account, dishing out threats. He said in one tweet there would be dire consequences for those who want to destabilize the country. Earlier, Mangwana had said the law will do anything in its power to stop you. Zimbabwean citizens, however, vowed there was not turning back on the protest plans regardless of threats by the state. Peter Mutasa, the chairperson of Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition, said, if on Monday, May 9, 2022, you suffer in a transport queue, the government won't be the problem, you will be the problem. Use your constitutional rights to protest quietly.
Moving on to Egypt, militants attacks kill 11 troops in Sinai. Egypt's military said at least 11 troops were killed in a militant attack on Saturday in the restive northern part of Sinai of Peninsula. The military said in a statement that the militants attacked a water pumping station east of the Suez Canal. Clashes ensued following the initial onslaught, which resulted in the deaths of one officer and 10 soldiers. Spokesperson Colonel Garib Abdul Hafez said on a military Facebook page 5 others were wounded according to the official. Hunt is underway for the terrorist element, he said. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi mourned the death of troops, vowing in a Facebook post to continue fighting the militants and use uprooting terrorism. We'll be right back after the break.
This is Africa Good Morning, bringing you the latest in news stories. Tigray Army general dies in prison. A Tigrayan general and former commander in the African Union mission in Somalia died in custody after he was arrested along with other senior officers in the early days of the war in 2020. The rebel authorities in Tigray are calling for an independent investigation into the circumstances surrounding his death. General Gremhadin Fikadu was a dominant figure in the Ethiopian army. On Tuesday, the Tigrayan authorities' External Affairs Office called him a martyr. His death, the External Affairs Office said, follows the suspicious deaths of 2 other generals as well as hundreds of Tigrayan officers and soldiers. The former sector commander with AMISOM, he was the head of the Federal Troops Communications Department when the war broke out. Previously, he had commanded Ethiopian troops in Liberia and then on the Batama front during the war against Eritrea between 1999 and 2000. He was arrested on 11th November 2020 with 16 other senior officers from the start of operations in Tigray. They were accused of having sabotaged communications between the Federal Command and the Northern Commander. Last year, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission met him in prison and declared that his conditions of detention was acceptable.
In South Africa, 50% more cases of COVID-19 are reported in 24 hours. A new wave of the coronavirus driven by 2 new Omicron subvariants in South Africa has led to more than 50% increases in infections in 24 hours. According to official figures released on Thursday, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases counted 9,757 new cases of COVID-19 in the country, 50% more than the 6,170 new cases counted by the day before Wednesday. 64 new deaths were also reported. More than a quarter of people tested had a positive result, the highest rate recorded in months. COVID-19 has also claimed 7 lives in the past 2 days. The Center for Epidemic Response and Innovation warned late April that South Africa, the country officially the most affected by COVID-19 on the continent, has entered a new wave of the pandemic. The country of nearly 60 million people, where less than 45% of the adult population is fully vaccinated, has officially recorded more than 3.8 million cases and over 100,000 deaths. The new Omicron subvariants, whose virulence has yet to be determined, are causing the new wave of COVID-19 pandemic in South Africa, according to the World Health Organization.
In our next story, we're still in South Africa. Call to use water sparingly as winter season sets in. The Department of Water and Sanitation has called on the public to utilize water with caution as the winter season sets in with minimal amount of rainfall. According to the department, South Africa's water levels have slightly declined as the winter season sets in. This week's water levels demonstrated a minimal decline of water levels compared to the same period last week. This week, the overall storage capacity of the country's water level sits at 95.4%, a slight decline from last week's 96.2%, and a notable enhancement from last year's 84.8%, the Department of Water and Sanitation said on Thursday. Now, 7 out of 9 provinces have recorded a reduction in water levels, namely Free State moved down marginally from 105.9% to 105.2%. Eastern Cape dwindled moderately from 68.0% to 67.0%. Gauteng recorded a tiny downturn from 102.9% last week to 102%. Only 2 provinces are on the increment trajectory. These include Mpumalanga, which elevated marginally from 95.2% to 95.3%, and Northwest stands at 80.1%, minimal expansion from last week's 79.6%. Now, in the Western Cape, which is a combination of parts that experience rainfall in winter and those that receive rainfall during other seasons, Berg River Dam dropped from 69.7% last week to 68.6%, and Clan William Dam is below average at 32.6% from 35.3% last week. The department continues to work tirelessly with authorities in KwaZulu-Natal to rebuild infrastructure and restore water supply in the province following the recent devastation caused by floods, the department said.
In our next story, 35% Malawians living with non-communicable diseases. At least 35% of Malawians suffer from non-communicable diseases but remain ignorant of their condition, leading to sudden deaths because the condition remains uncontrolled and untreated, a 2018 Lancet Commission study has established. The increased awareness of NCDs has led to an increase increase in demand for NCD's drug and services, a situation that is clashing with the existing problem of shortage of drugs and limited number of health personnel in Malawi. PIH project manager Asan Nguei Magobo said they will continue raising awareness about NCDs across the country, and they hope the shift in the procurement of drug of central medical stores trust to district councils will bring about a positive change in addressing the problem of shortage of drugs in Malawi.
10,000 Nigerians to perform Christian pilgrimage. The Nigeria Christian Pilgrims Commission expects that at least 10,000 faithful will go on pilgrimage from Nigeria in 2022. The 2022 pilgrimage begins in Nigeria on May 31st, when the faithful will travel to Israel and Jordan. NCPC's Executive Secretary Yakuba Pem made these disclosures on Saturday in Yola when he inspected facilities at the Yola International Airport, one of the takeoff points for the pilgrims. We are going to start taking pilgrims to Israel and Jordan from May 31st. They will spend 5 days in Israel and 3 days in Jordan, Mr. Pem said. He noted that the visit to Jordan was added because that was where John the Baptist baptized Jesus Christ, and it was a place where Moses also died. Jordan is also a place from where Elijah ascended to heaven alive, Pam said.
All right, we have a jam-packed show for you this morning. We are crossing over to Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa right after the break. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. In our second installment of an interview with sustainable development scientist and passionate climate justice activist Reinhold Mungundu, he shares with Yana Marie Smith how he is fighting to ensure that Namibia is able to adapt and live with the ravages of climate change. He shares the urgency of implementing sustainable development to ensure an equal Namibia for all amidst climate change. Let's take a look.
I think in a world where resources are few, where systems problems are complex, there is no space for words like industrialization, because industrialization for whom? Because over the years we've been industrializing for whom? For what? If inequality is still rising, and in the world, the 1% of the population owns much more wealth than the bottom majority,
Reinhold, what is the way forward? How does Namibia shield itself from the impacts of climate change?
I mean, it's very urgent. We are at the precipice of civilizational collapse. We've already gotten the second warning to humanity, and it's really a call for radical transformation now. And unfortunately, for the longest time, we have been busy drafting policies, agreements, and all these kind of things. And I really think for us to build resilience against climate change, and for us to really build a common future for all of us, it should start with policy. It should start with decision making. Because ever since the 1950s to now, not only in Namibia but around the world, our leaders has been very obsessed, with the notion of economic growth, with this mirage of creating prosperity, and ever since they have been commodifying nature to grow economies. They have been extracting, they have been destroying. And in our own context, for instance, what our government has been doing is to commodify everything, whether it's the elephants, whether it's the timber, and now the oil with the mines, with the land. It doesn't make sense, to have all the money in the world, to have your economy grow at a certain period, but at the same time, inequality is still rising. I always say, does it really make sense to have economic growth, without proper air quality, without fresh water? Now people must buy bottled water because you've now polluted your rivers. Without food, because now you've destroyed and sold your lands. There's now no arable land to grow food. It's really time that we start listening to science. It's time that we really start navigating and with new paradigms to progress. In Namibia, for instance, our politicians, our leaders has this notion, as this obsession really for growth at the expense of social justice, at the expense of human well-being, and the issue is always creating jobs. But it doesn't make sense when Reynold, who lives in a shack in one of the informal areas of Windhoek, has a job without medical aid, without proper wages, and he's living in a shack where he doesn't have sanitation, he doesn't have access to clean water, and these are fundamentals for human well-being. And that's why I say we must rethink how we look at development. We can invest in wind and solar energy, and not just to promote large fields of solar energy systems or wind energy systems. I'm really talking about decentralized renewable energy systems. We must put a good energy mix in place, of course, shaped by policy, where, for instance, households, local people have their independence to create their own energy, and at home only for their need to sell the surplus on the grid, and to have the surplus make them bring them income. For you are promoting dignity, you are promoting clean and renewable energy. We must be very careful, because what we are seeing is that capitalism has started repackaging itself in the sustainability discourse. When, for instance, we speak about renewable energy in Southern Africa or Namibia, because it's quite easy for the Black elitist group or for the 1% who are privileged or to invest in renewable energy and still monopolize it, and still have these massive plantations of solar energy systems. But again, energy will not reach the poorest majority. These green theatrics, rhetorics, and greenwashing with our own green hydrogen project, we are lobbying for a lot of money from the Green Climate Fund, but is it really going to be materialistic? And what are our essential needs? We must ask these questions, And in addition to decentralized renewable energy systems, I think is agroforestry or agroecology. And as I've previously mentioned, is that because of the water scarcity in Namibia, because of the uncertainty with the rain, and overall because of climate change, we need more regenerative systems for producing food. And I'm speaking about local food systems where me, as somebody living in the informal settlement of Windhoek, I'm able to produce my own health food. If we can promote a lot of these small systems, then we are able to be self-sufficient, because a lot of people, when they think agriculture, they think massive land, and it's not really about the land, because in the end, commercialization, industrialization of agriculture leads to the overuse of pesticides, the polluting of our rivers, and the promotion of unhealthy food, which we do not need, because in the end, it defeats the purpose of human well-being again.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time now for us to cross over to Zambia. Experts have commended the government for advancing talks with neighboring Namibia for the construction of a gas and oil pipeline from Windhoek to Lusaka. Now, Master Mike Sichula has this story and more. Good morning, Master Sichula.
Good morning, Ainan. Good morning, Glanina. Thank you very much for joining me. And indeed, the Zambian government and Namibia are expected to sign a memorandum of understanding for the construction of a gas and oil pipeline from Windhoek into Lusaka. Well, this information was availed by the Minister of Energy, Mr. Peter Kapala, when he made a courtesy call on Savionga District Commissioner at his office over the weekend. So the gas pipe will be used for power generation, while the oil pipeline will help to reduce the cost of petroleum products in the country. As you know that because of the war that is going on in Ukraine, a number of issues have been affected, and one of which is that the pricing of oil has begun to go up in Zambia. So this pipeline, which is expected to take between 3 to 4 years to be complete, will come in a long way to address the shortage, to address the high cost of fuel, as well as increase electricity generation for Zambia.
Yes, indeed. So should the pipeline be realized, that would be good news for Windhoek and Lusaka as well. Now, still on gas, oil, and mining, I understand that President Hakainde Hichilema is scheduled to deliver a keynote address at the mining indaba in South Africa, Cape Town. Can you tell us more?
Yes, indeed. President Hakainde Hichilema has actually arrived in Cape Town, South Africa, where he's expected to deliver a keynote speech at the mining indaba. During the event, President Hichilema is expected to engage both potential and current investors and partners to advance the conversation relating to efforts to establish Zambia as a world-class mining destination. So this is something that is coming at a time when one of the mining giants, Vandetta Resources, has actually announced a number of wholesale changes if they were to be given back Konkola copper mines. As you may be aware, the previous administration took over Konkola copper mines, but after the change of government, Vandetta is advancing course to get back the mine, and they have promised the Zambian government that they are going to do better than they did when they first bought the mine. So it is expected that during this meeting, President Hichilema is going to meet the owners of Vandetta to understand whether the mine is going to be given back. However, a number of stakeholders in Zambia have rejected the return of Vandetta Mineral Resources, saying the Indian company did not do well when they held the company for some time. So we are expectant to see what will happen from this mining industry.
All right, please tell us why former high-ranking government officials have been arrested by the authorities.
Well, this is one of the cases that has taken a number of Zambians by surprise, because sometime in 2014, 2015, the previous administration did sign some contract with some Chinese construction company to construct Frederick Chiluba University. President Chiluba was the Zambia's second president, and when he died, there was news that they were going to construct a university in his honor. However, after some time, news has broke out that the money that was dispersed was never used for the construction. The area picture that we showed is just the groundwork that was done, and despite the contract of worth $225 million having been signed, but what you can see there is just almost just the foundation of where the university was to sit. So a number of key high-ranking former government officials have been arrested, We are talking about, there in the picture is Mr. Fredson Yamba, who was the secretary to cabinet. He's been arrested to understand what caused the delay to the completion of the project. However, information has come out that the delay could have been as a result when President Edgar Lungu announced that they were going not to continue with projects that were below 80% complete. This was because during that period, Zambia was trying to get a loan from the IMF, and the IMF had directed Zambia to to reduce costs on what it was doing. So this is some of the issues that have come up. However, the official, the former the former government has not commented. I mean, the former party that was running government has not commented on this issue, which has caught many by surprise, and a lot of people are asking how 225 million kwacha could have gone to waste and the university was never completed.
All right. In your next story, can you just briefly tell us why Zambia has joined the race to bid for the hosting of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations tournament?
Okay, Zambia has joined the race for hosting the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations because there are reports coming from Guinea trying to pull out to host the event, because Guinea was supposed to host the 2025 tournament, but because of financial and issues that they are not been able to construct infrastructure, there are talks that the Guinea is going to pull out. So Zambia, having got two modern stadiums there, what you can see there in the pictures.
All right,
Heroes
thank
National
you so
Stadium
much,
in Lusaka.
Mike.
So they're trying to see what can happen.
Mike, we're running out of time, so sorry to cut you off there. Thank you so much for bringing us the latest news all the way from Zambia. Up next, the weather.
Wake up early in the morning and I'm waiting for the sun to rise. Stars fade away, our brand new day. Don't be lazy, don't be shy, hold my hand and kiss the night goodbye. Open your eyes, shine your light. Shine.
Thank you for joining us. Now, one of my favorite correspondent, Talent Gore, is ready to give us the news on the ground in the House of Stone. Good morning, Talent. How are you doing? Please take your first story.
Good morning, Aina. Good morning, Glenora. So at least 1.8 million children between 5 and 15 years received treatment for bilharzia last month during a campaign run by the Health and Childcare Ministry. The ministry was partnered by the World Health Organization and Higher Life Foundation during the 7-day mass treatment campaign in 43 districts. Bilharzia, sometimes known as snail fever, is caused by waterborne snails carrying parasites that penetrate the skin and can cause distended bellies, malnutrition, and if untreated can damage women's reproductive organs, tripling the risk of HIV. So the government, in partnership with the Health with the World Health Organization has been conducting these campaigns whereby they are treating young children bilharzia.
All right. Now, Zimbabwe's transport crisis worsens. This is your next story. Can you expand more on this?
So the Zimbabwean transport crisis yesterday attracted global attention. Amnesty International criticizing the government for refusing to revoke the Zupco monopoly. Zupco is a state-owned bus company, and when COVID-19 started in 2020, government banned private transporters from ferrying people and assigned Zupco to do so. However, Zupco does not have enough buses to cater for the public. So now you find out that commuters are spending hours in queues waiting for transport, while some have to risk their life and limb traveling on bus carriers as Zupco buses fail to cope with the demand. So now the government has been encouraged by the Amnesty International to have talks with the private transporters so that they find a way forward to at least lessen the transport crisis. Yesterday, President Emmerson Mnangagwa then addressed the nation and said that they were in talks with the private transporters and they were working on bringing back private transporters on the road so that they lessen the transport crisis in the country.
All right, now Zimbabwe's new parliament, which was funded by the Chinese government, is now completed. Tell us about this.
So there is a new parliament which was being built and was 100% funded by the Chinese government, which is located just outside Harare in Mount Hampton. So the parliament is now 100% complete, and the official opening will be done soon. The Parliament of Zimbabwe wrote on its Twitter handle and said that they were now just doing the final touches, and the parliament will be opened very soon. So we found out that people are now buying properties, they are now buying land in Mount Hampton, which is for years has been neglected. So now people are now buying stands, they are now buying land in that area, and they are actually developing Mount Hampton.
All right, Talent, happy Monday, and thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
All right, in economic news, Somalia requests the IMF for financial support extension. More on that story when we return after the break. Thank you for watching Africa Good Morning. In our top economic news, Somalia requests the IMF for financial support extension. Somalia's government has asked the International Monetary Fund to extend its financial support by 3 months to August the 17th. In February, the IMF warned that Somalia's delayed legislative and presidential election risked the renewal of the 3-year budget support program worth nearly $400 million. Presidential elections have now been set for May the 15th. IMF's mission head Laura Jamiro acknowledged the request but did not clarify whether the automatic expiration of the program will be extended. The conclusion of negotiations for renewal of the program is also required part of a deal to slash Somalia's debt from more than $5 billion to around a tenth of that.
UK government recovers $23 million Abacha loot. The National Crime Agency of the United Kingdom has announced the recovery of about $23.5 million in looted funds from the allies and family of a former Nigerian dictator, the late Sani Abacha. Now, the funds were retrieved as part of a wider pool of funds identified by the United States Department of Justice as having been stolen out of Nigeria in the 1990s by Mr. Abacha and his accomplices, according to a statement posted on the UK's crime agency website on Thursday. Now, according to the NCA, the looted funds were recovered after the US DOJ requested enforcement of the US forfeiture order relating to the seized monies after nearly 7 years of litigation and international negotiations to secure the recovery order. Now, Nigeria had also in the past recovered several other tranches of Abacha loot, including the latest $308 million laundered by Kebbi State Governor Abubakar Bagadu from Jersey. Now, in 2006, about $723 million in Abacha loot was returned to Nigeria from Switzerland, but the use of the recovery was largely unaccounted for, Transparency International said. Now, Mr. Abacha is thought to have stolen between $3 and $5 billion, the majority of which came from Nigeria's oil resources.
Western companies leave Russia, taking Russian jobs with them. More and more Russians are losing their jobs due to Western sanctions on Russia, and some are having to painfully rethink their future. With some sanctions effects yet to be felt, the number of unemployed could grow. On February the 24th, Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine, and foreign companies began to leave the Russian market. Western sanctions against hundreds of individuals and companies, including airlines, were also adopted. In addition, the West closed its airspace to Russian planes and banned the sale, delivery, and transfer of planes and replacement parts to Russia.
In our next story, gangs stealing cables torment South African platinum mines. South African miners are battling a growing threat miles underground in the world's deepest platinum shafts, gangs stealing copper cables and disrupting operations. Enticed by high copper prices, thieves are sneaking in, descending deep underground and setting up camp among vast networks of tunnels to strip metal from power cables. The country's platinum giants are struggling to contain the syndicates of trespassers, known as Zamazamas, a Zulu name that means take a chance. Illegal mining has been a problem in South Africa, though now thefts of equipment are becoming a major worry. Now, the incidents, in some cases daily, can halt work for about a week at a time as cable cuts cripple systems such as locomotives that take ore to the surface. Now, the thefts have become increasingly lucrative, with copper recently hitting a record high on expectations that supply will remain tight and mining companies finding it hard to keep the gangs out.
The rand has gone from darling to dab. The rand bonds and stock had a flying start to the year, benefiting as a relative haven among emerging markets and from a rise in commodity prices spurred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But sentiment has soured. The nation's assets have gone into retreat as investors assess global rising interest after hikes from U.S. federal revenue and the Bank of England this week. Concerns are also growing over inflation as well as the surging COVID-19 cases in China and what restrictions imposed by Beijing to fight the virus may mean for the world economy. Now let's have a look at the economic indicators.
Now, Ari Hohart is standing by in Cape Town with the latest in sports news. Good morning, Ari.
Yes, very good morning. Nice to talk to you this lovely Monday morning.
Awesome. Can you take us into your first story, please?
Yes, it is soccer news. It is still the English Premier League that is still very exciting. A few games to go in the league before they finish, and the big news from the weekend is that Manchester City is leading at the moment by 3 points, and that's because Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur drew. That is action there from that game. That was 1-1, so not a good result for Liverpool. And it was Manchester City that beat Newcastle by 5-0. So they now have 86 league points. Liverpool's got 83 league points. And so there's quite a big difference there with a few games to go. Everton, they did well at the bottom of the log. They're trying to fight not to be relegated, and they beat Leicester City by 2-1. And it is also Brighton that beat Manchester United in a surprisingly big score of 4-0. In the fight for the top four, Arsenal beat Leeds by 2-1, so they're still in the fight for the top four.
All right, in a Formula One racing, it was in Miami Grand Prix.
Yes, very exciting, almost like a Monaco Grand Prix feel. It's there by the sea, and it's all the celebs there. But the results on the track was that it was Max Verstappen that won in his Red Bull Honda, and it was Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari that came in second, and Carlos Sainz of Ferrari came in third. So it was Honda won, Ferrari. There's Charles Leclerc. He was second. He's still leading on the points. He's got 104 points. And second place is Max Verstappen on 85.
In tennis, the finals of the Madrid Open were played.
Yes, exciting tournament. It's a new name that everybody can remember in men's tennis. That his name is Carlos Alcaraz. He is from Spain. He's the new sensation, Carlos Alcaraz. There, he won the Madrid Open. It's a 1,100 tournament. In the process of winning the tournament, he also beat Rafael Nadal, and he also beat in the semi-finals Novak Djokovic, the world number one, in a tough three-setter. In the final yesterday, he beat Alexander Zverev, the world number two, quite convincingly by 6-3 and 6-1, and he's only 18 years old. I think he just turned 19 just in these days, so a new sensation. In the women's section, it is Ons Jabez. There she is with a trophy, very proud to be the Africa's first women's player to win a 1,000 tournament. On Shabir, she is from Tunisia. She beat Jessica Pegula by 7-5, love 6 and 6-2.
All right, what's happening in the world of cycling?
Yes, it's leading up to the big one is always the Tour de France, but the biggest one next to that is the Giro d'Italia. Italian cycling is as big as in France. And it was day 2 yesterday, and it was the sprinters that came to the front. It was Mark Cavendish of Britain that came through as the winner in the sprint. He beat Arnaud Demer in the tight sprint. And in the time trial on the first day, it was Simon Yates of Britain that also won the time trial. So for Britain, it is the first two stages, 1 and 2, or they won the first two stages. The general classifications at the moment is Mathieu van der Poel. He's from the Netherlands. He is the leader after the second stage. They've got an off day today. They will fly to Italy. Sorry, the first races was in not in Italy, and they will continue tomorrow in Italy.
All right. Now, in the world of golf, I understand that the Wells Fargo tournament happened in the USA and the British. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, on both sides of the Atlantic. Firstly, maybe the USA, it was the Wells Fargo tournament. That is Keegan Bradley, and he, unfortunately, he was the leader after 3 rounds, but he didn't have a good final round. He went 2 over par for a total of -6. The winner was Max Homa of the USA on -8. Rory McIlroy further down, 5th position, -4. And then Davy van der Walt of South Africa tied 41st on +5. That is Thorben Olesen. He is from Denmark, and he was the winner in the British Masters, and that was played at the Belfry, and he had a real tough round until the 17th, where he made an eagle. On the 18th, he made a birdie, and he won by 1 shot, 10 under par. Justin Walters of South Africa tied third. A good result for him.
Oh, thank you so much, Ari, for bringing us the latest in sports news. We're just talking, me and Aina, what would we do without you? Bring us the latest in sports.
Yes, sometimes we bring good news, sometimes we bring bad news, but hopefully your team did well over the weekend, and if not, they will probably do better this coming weekend.
We don't talk about that. All right, highlights up next, right after the break.
Thank you very much for watching Africa Good Morning. If you're just joining us or you've missed some of our top stories, here are the highlights. 60 believed killed after school attack by Russia in East Ukraine. Ukraine's Zelensky says evil has returned. Bandits kill over 50 in fresh Zamfara attack. Zimbabweans vote to defy police crackdown ahead of planned uprising. Somalia requests the IMF for financial support extension. And those have been our stories.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Monday morning. Do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and our DSTV channel 285 and our Gotv channel 94 between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. every weekday. Now, if you have any comments regarding our program, do share them with us on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And if you happen to have videos or photos of happenings in your parts of Africa, do share them with us and we'll gladly include them in our program. I am Glenora Shepura and this is Aina Raiza Kweyo.